What if I told you that if you believe in the Bible, that at the very beginning, the God of the Bible, the Hebrew God, told you you don't need a Savior, you don't need a Jesus, you don't need a Allah, you don't need a Muhammad, you don't need anybody but you. And you don't need anybody but you. You don't need anybody but the total you. What if I told you that your Bible, Torah, Quran, Tanakh, whatever you want to call it, actually tells you that, but doctrines that came later stole that away from you, took you away from the hermetic understanding of the inner self. What was taught at the schools of Akhenaten, what was taught in the Tao, what is taught in Buddhism, what is taught in these other wisdoms that came long before. What if I told you that your Bible had it, but then it lost every aspect of it as different people began to write it and add their own spins and doctrine? So what's up, everybody? How you doing? This is your Coach Renz, and I want to take a few minutes to first thank everybody who's a subscriber to the page, everybody who's on my Patreon. I appreciate all you guys. I thank you for everything that you have done and the support that you give. I want to thank the people who come by my store. I didn't get permission to say her name, but a young lady came by my store. Now we're shutting that store down, so if you want to order popcorn from Uncle Renz Popcorn, please go to urpopcorn.com. The letter U, the letter R, the word popcorn.com, and you can order it and it'll get shipped today. If you're in the local Atlanta area, of course, it'll get delivered to you. So, on Tuesday, I do my live show at 9 p.m. So please join me at Tuesday, 9 p.m. And this particular week, we talked about the ideas of Kaufman and how he talked about the Jewish religion, the Hebrew religion, actually was the first monotheism, that it didn't come out of polytheism. And we talked about how it was different, what was so different about it. And it wasn't so much that it came brand new as much as it was, the first part is a return to. The first part of the Hebrew Bible is a return to the Hermetics. It's a return to the teachings of Thoth. It's a return to the Emerald Tablets. It's a return to what Akhenaten was trying to bring back to Egypt, to Kemet. It was a return to the understanding of one supreme deity, one supreme intelligence, but that supreme intelligence not being some jealous, needing you to worship it. You got to find something outside yourself, that you got to follow all these rules, that it was a deity that said, here it is, here's the universe, and I expect you to have morality. I expect you to know how to handle yourself. I expect you just to know that each life is precious. I expect you to know all these things. Let me give you some ideas on that one. Now, we talked about this as part of the whole big picture on Tuesday, but I just want to break down this one aspect of it. And it all comes from Genesis. It all comes from the book of Genesis. And this idea also, it's in the Tao. It's in the Tao. The Tao teaches that a man who needs rules to have good morality, that dude has a problem. You have an issue if you need to have rules. If you have to have the confessions of Mayat in order for you to have good morality, then you have a problem. If you have to have the 10 commandments in order for you to have good morality, you have a problem. You have to have Hammurabi's code in order to not know to steal from people, then you have a problem. You have a problem within yourself. You have a moral problem within yourself. So when you look at this first book in Genesis, there was a difference. There was a difference. One of the differences among many, but one of the big differences is that the creator God, the El, the Baal, the Elohim, expected you to already have a sense of morality, a sense of justice, a sense of knowing what's good and what's not. It starts with Adam and Eve, but that's not the main part I want to get to, but it starts with Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve, the sense of morality. Hey, don't eat from this tree. You got all these other trees, all this other fruit to eat from. Now, mind you, the first chapter of Genesis is coming from the J text. The second part is coming from the E text. But in the E text, in the second creation, that actually names Adam, which it was actually just calling him man. He was saying you had a sense of general morality. Don't eat from the tree. Don't shed the blood of the animals. The other animals won't shed your blood. You know, you don't have to worry about that kind of thing. I made this paradise for you. Just don't eat from this tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It's a little crazy to put the tree right there to tempt them, but hey, it's written by the E text, not the J text. The E text begins the anthropomorphic ideas of El, Yahweh, Elohim, whatever you want to call it. But it begins to be changed at this point. But in the first part, written by the J text, the Judas text, the Northern Kingdom. It just has got the God, creator God, creating. Firmament above the firmament, the same way that Marduk, the same way that Ptah, the same way that every other creation story, there's waters above the waters and separation of the waters, and then the firmament. And then he just says that it was good. Everything in creation was good. Made the birds, the air, the grass, the trees, everything. It was good. Made man and woman, told them to be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and had dominion over earth. And everything was good. Told men that you have from every tree to eat from, every fruit to eat from, and told the animals you have all the grass to eat from. So man was supposed to eat fruit and grain while the animals ate grass, so that there's no competition but for food. We weren't supposed to eat each other. So everything was good. And he stood back and saw everything that he made was good. So I know that later redactors in other books say, oh, I made evil, God made good, they made everything and all this kind of stuff, and that actually brings it into more in line with what was going on with most other societies. They had a mythos concerning that there was always a good and a bad. There's always a good and the evil. There's always a struggle between good and evil. All right. But in the Jewish text, in the Hebrew text, they created a new God that did not have that, a new God for them. But this was a return to the Hermetic thought, of the Hermetic thought that the all is just the all. The all creates. If you want to get more into the Hermetics, please join me this upcoming Tuesday at 9 o'clock. I don't know what that day it is, February something, but join me then, and we're going to be talking about, we're going to break down the Hermetics. But in the Hermetics, it's talking about the all. The all just creates. The all creates acts out of his own will. This was something that the J text was trying to teach, but it came from the Hermetic idea of the all. Right? So it was just trying to teach. It was just creating. It's just being. And everything that it created was good. It is the opposition of man's free will that creates evil, that creates negativity, that creates sin. And this is where the Adam and Eve story comes in. This is where the E text comes in, because the J text just created everything, and then man had dominion over everything, and that was it. But then the E text comes in and said, no, we got to break it down to more of a human form, tell a story. So now it's Adam, and from the rib is Eve, and then they were told not to eat. Well, Adam was told not to eat from the tree, and it was passed along to Eve, and then they were both standing there, and they ate from the tree, and their eyes were open, and they knew good and evil. They hadn't done nothing wrong other than eat from the tree. They haven't done any evil, but they just ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and that in itself was enough. That now the will of man is at opposition against God, and that's the E-text began to bring that into play, because those of the E-text were the southern kingdom, and they warred against the northern kingdom. So of course they had to be different, right? They were writing from a different perspective, different point of view. So they warred. But then an interesting thing happened, and this is the crux of it. An interesting thing happens. You have Adam, he knows his wife, he has sex with Eve. They have a baby. They have Cain and they have Abel. They have two sons. Right? Now these two sons, some say that these two sons were twins, some say don't. It really doesn't matter. But so they had these two sons, Cain and Abel. Cain is the tiller of the soil, Abel is the shepherd, right? Now I can go into this whole thing about how one of the reasons why the Hebrew people were very nomadic is because the E-text, the Elohists, always thought that the Hebrew people should be nomads. They shouldn't build cities. They shouldn't build places where they live in one place and build up. Because Abel, whose gift was pleasant to God, was a sheep herder, and sheep herders are nomadic. And then Cain, who was a tiller of the soil, and all the lineage of Cain, they built cities, and they had worked with iron, and they did all these other kind of things that create civilization that they weren't supposed to, that the Hebrew people weren't supposed to follow along in that. And that's a whole nother video that people we can talk about why they were so nomadic and they moved from place to place to place, and that there's no evidence of them ever building anything, is because the E-text, the Elohists, had them as these nomadic people. Wow. But within that story, there's a very key part, and we're going to hit it right now. When Cain is angry, frustrated, mad, because his gifts weren't given the same praise as Abel's gift. And a lot of people get stuck there and they just think about first fruit. You got to pay your tithes, give your first fruits. His gift wasn't as favored as Abel. So Cain is talking to God. He's talking to the Creator. He's talking to El. He's talking to Elohim. And Elohim says something very interesting. He tells him that sin crouches at your door, but you can master it. But you can master it. I want you to think about that for a second. Think about that for just a second. Cain, sin, crouches at your door, but you can master it. Essentially, sin is at your door. Jealousy, anger, the willingness to shed your brother's blood is at your door, but you can master it. If you can master that sin, if Cain was told he can master sin, then that means you can master sin. You. Not that you're a filthy rag, not that you're undeserving, not that nobody can live a pure life, nobody can live a sinless life. No, you can master it. That is what Elohim said, right? I mean, that's what he said. Now, if you're saying that, well, no, because he had to send Jesus and all that kind of stuff, then you're saying he lied to Cain? Did he lie to Cain? Did he say, Cain, I'm going to lie to you and I'm going to tell you that you can master it because I know that you can't. And later on, I'm going to have to send like a flood, right? And then after the flood, because that ain't going to really work, then I'm going to have to send like kings, and then I'm going to have to send judges, and then, and all that stuff ain't going to work. So I'm going to have to send you into captivity, make all the people slaves and that sort of thing. But then, that's really not going to work either. Then I'm going to have other people like the Egyptians conquer you. I'm going to have the Assyrians and everybody else conquer you, but you still ain't going to really get it, and that ain't going to really work. So then, you're still going to be a golden calf and things. So then I'm going to send you, off and separate you and take you away from the whole promise of Abraham. Y'all ain't getting nothing. But then that still ain't going to work for you. So then what I'm going to do is that I'm going to, come down. I'm going to impregnate this woman with my spirit, this little young lady with my spirit. Tell her husband, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. You still marry her because, I ain't got time. I'm going to be an absentee father. Don't worry about it. And then I'm going to be born, from the womb of a woman. Even though Gospel Thomas said when you see the one who is not born from woman, lay prostrate, because that's the one is the father. But, we're going to say that, hey, I'm going to be born from the woman. Ain't nobody going to know much about me. I'm going to do 12 years, a stint, and then I'm going to disappear for about, some years, and then I'm going to come back at 30, right? And then I'm going to go through all this process, do some miracles, teach some lessons, and, gather me some disciples. Then I'm going to die. I'm going to be the sacrifice. Abraham's sacrifice would have been good, but this is going to be I'm going to be the sacrifice. I'm going to be the sacrifice, be the blood. And then after that, we ain't gonna tell nobody, the Hopi Indians, we ain't telling them, the Chinese people, we ain't telling them, in the Chinese 6th dynasty, we're not telling those people, we're not telling the people in sub-Africa, we're not telling the people in the Aboriginals down in Australia. We're gonna let them go for like 1,000, 2,000, almost 2,000 years without telling them, but they still responsible for knowing who I am, that I did this in this small little piece of area of town. I'm gonna make them all responsible. And then we're just gonna let everything get convoluted. We're gonna let the, wars and all these things happen, and I'm gonna spread my message real slow, real slow. And then, yeah, so Cain, you can master evil, you can master sin. I'm gonna tell you that, but I'm lying to you because I gotta do all this other stuff, because I know, man, I'm gonna regret making man, later on. Not right now, but later on I will, because man gonna do some stuff, because man's free will keeps throwing me off. So, yeah. But he tells Cain, I ain't mean to go into that tangent, but he tells Cain, you can master sin. That's very interesting. Like, that's been on my mind for like days. Actually been on my mind for ever since I first got ready for the live that we did on Tuesday. But you can master sin. Now, this is coming from the Hermetic teachings. The Hermetic teaching is that you master your mind, you master your heart, you master your thoughts, you master your emotions, you master your sexual energy, and you have the keys of power. That is what's taught in the Hermetics. That if you master those in the Buddhist and the chakra, and when you open your chakra and you master your chakra, from the sacral chakra, your heart chakra, your third eye, your crown, your throat chakra, when you master your 7 chakras, then you control everything. And Lao Tzu is once you come into the understanding of the way, you no longer need Buddhism, meaning that you no longer need religion and rituals, that you have mastered, and you think how God thinks. You think in a way that how the universe just flows. Everything gets done without you doing anything, with you doing nothing. That you govern the people in such a way that they don't even realize that they were being governed, and they think that they did it all on their own. That's what these ancient, previous to the Hebrew, were teaching. This is previous to the Christianity was teaching, very much previous before the Islamic was teaching. So all of them was teaching this idea that you had to master self. And if you master self, you don't have to worry about sin crouching at your door. Think about it. If something's crouching at your door, that means it's ready to attack you. As soon as you open that door, bam, it's pouncing on you. But if you master sin, there's nothing that it can do. It can't pounce on you. The Tao talks about how, you know, if the people are given the wisdom and the knowledge to know self, that no one with a slick tongue can come in and trick them. That no one with wavering information can come in and persuade them out of their unity with the way, with the Tao. That they'll be able to maintain that connection and maintain the awareness of self. And it is that the Elohim was telling Cain. I'm not saying I subscribe to that book as pure literature, as I said before. Well, not literature, it is literature. I don't subscribe to it as this is the word and will and way of God. But I say it as this was the culture of the Hebrew people at the time it was written. This was the thought process that was in the Judah at the time it was written. This is what their culture was following. This is what their culture was understanding. It is not history of the world or the universe. It's history of their culture at the time, their theology, their thought process, their psychology at that time. So at that time, the Judas and the Elohists understood that morality, that sin is just you going against your own morality and going against yourself and going against what is good in nature at the time. And sin is just you going against it, but you can master it. You have the ability to see all things as being, this is good, and working within the confines of nature. You see, one of the differences that I talked about in the video is that the Hermetic view is that the all created all the laws of the universe and the universe with a mere thought. Not of itself, not from itself, but with a mere thought. And that it all exists in the mind of the all. So, and the only thing outside of the universal law, outside of nature, is the all. Everything else is inside of nature. I can't function outside of nature because I'm not the all. But the all has gifted us to be made in the same image of the ability to create by our thoughts, to control our emotions and control our voice, to control our sexual energy, and therefore have dominion over everything, over the universe, over our universe, over how we live, how we perceive life, how we do life. We have that ability. But then sin crouches at the door. And if we allow our emotions to overwhelm us, then it causes you to murder your brother. It causes you to slay the blood and of your brother. When later on it talks about the Elohist has it where the blood. Now it's the Elohist who wrote that. No, it's the priestly. I think it's the priestly. The priestly text, which is the P text, talks about how the blood, when you slain an animal, you're now able to eat the animals, that you don't eat the blood of the animal, and the blood of the animal spills on the ground, so that you're giving it back to God. Now that's interesting. You're giving it back to God by going back on the ground. That is a Babylonian kind of thought process, a Canaanite thought process, where Ea, is given the blood on the ground because Ea is the earth, and the blood replenishes Ea. The sacrifice goes to Ea. So it kind of goes back to that. And in many other traditions, many other philosophies of life, many other cultures of life, the sacrificial blood is not to be consumed, but it is to be mixed in bowls or given to the earth, poured upon on the ground, so that it is given back to Ea, Mother Earth, right? Or to whatever the name is for that particular culture. But I digress. You have the ability to master sin that way. Therefore, you don't need a Jesus. You don't need pray 5 times facing Mecca, and which is odd because the first temples in Islam were facing Jerusalem, not Mecca, right? The temple where you would pray, the direction you would pray, the altars. You don't need to go to the altars. You don't need to make the sacrifice. You don't need to do anything. The only sacrifice is yourself. Christians do say it's circumcision of the heart. Not only is the circumcision of the heart about love, but it's also about you controlling your emotions. The Christians who come onto my channel and all they have is cursing, All they have is name calling. The Hebrew Israelites who come on here and all they have is the name calling and the cursing. The Muslims who come on here and the name calling and the cursing. Where's the control over your emotions? That's why that sin crouches at your door. That's why you Catholics got to go to that priest, because that sin is crouching at your door. But for the adept, for the higher conscious, you realize that you are the master over all your emotions. Therefore, you understand the law of cause and effect. If I'm making a decision that is not predicated on pure emotion, that is both a mental and emotional connection going on, which does not allow for me to overthink it, but does not allow for me to over emotionalize it, but put a fair balance of the two into a decision, then cause and effects will lead me to the end goal that I'm headed towards for whatever it is, whether it's business, whether it's relationships, whether it's health, no matter what it is, that when I apply the laws of cause and effect with the proper frequency and vibration, that it moves me along this polarity scale, I am invoking what is above and what is below to assist me in that movement, allowing the logic and the love of nurturing for the male and female energies to work together to create and move me into the position of the original thought, of the goal that I had in mind, of where I'm thinking and believing and looking to move myself into. It is all hermetic. It is all the Emerald Tablets. It is all being taught by Akhenaten. It was all being taught by Thoth the Atlantean. So I hope you guys enjoy that. Please continue to subscribe to the channel, subscribe to the Patreon. I appreciate those. If you want to order popcorn from me, you'll get shipped to you, or you're local, and that's at urpopcorn.com. And watch these other videos and continue to watch the channel. Oh, and hit that subscribe button if you're finding me for the first time. We talk about this, money, love, sex, everything. So y'all have a great day. And remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable.